Okay, if you move forward, now we go to this area. One of my favorite areas. Each time I go to French museums, I'm waiting for going to this time, starting from Napoleon era.
The workmanship is so good.
Yeah. French swords and armor have always fascinated me. This is a body protection armor, cuirass, as they say, of Léopold d'Élysée Cherbe, 1776 to 1842. Right. So this was made, this armor, 1807. So this
is like the French cuirassiers in the Napoleonic armors, heavy cavalry. These were like pistol proof.
Yes.
So the core of your body is protected from pistol shot. I'm not so sure if they were musket proof at close range. Muskets were very powerful. But hey, any protection's good protection. But these are quite heavy, but then they dispense with all the rest of the armor. So this is, you were just protecting, your vital organs, basically. But look at how decorative they made them. I mean, the shoulder straps are, like jewelry rather than armor.
Yes.
All the little kind of articulations in the shape of link scales and things like that. Really amazing stuff.
So let me read this small, if I can, in our writings. Sherb was a soldier of prodigious valor, so he was very brave, who had shown proof of his courage starting from the age of 15.
Wow.
He had falsified his date of birth to enter the fight, right? He led
This is an unusual thing.
Yes, exactly.
Soldiers are really crazy. They want to get out there and do stuff.
Yeah, he had the 11th Regiment of Cuirassiers, he led them, with distinction in 1807 at Eylau, where he wore this breastplate and was made, because of his courage, a Knight of the Empire at Wagram in 1809. So he wore that.
Yeah, so it's not just a beautiful piece of armor, but it's associated with a famously brave man who quite clearly wanted to be a soldier more than anything else. I mean, a lot of teenage boys want to be heroes.
Exactly. But he went True. They want to prove themselves, of course.
Yeah. We all dreamed of being heroes when we were teenagers.
Of course. And this one, again, back to, the color bead. I cannot explain. The blade, the workmanship, Klingenthal. We are going to talk about Klingenthal. There are videos on Klingenthal, but with bead, we are going to talk about Klingenthal, and I can show you tons of pictures. I'm a big fan of blades made in Klingenthal in France, right?
Well,
so it's manufacture of Klingenthal and Saber of a sapper of the Imperial Guard, 1809, 1810. And we have these...
that explains the sword back, because...
So we have this French, let me use the other word in English, not the more common, rooster.
Yeah, we know the other word. We won't go there.
Exactly, let's just avoid that word.
It's a cheerful looking rooster.
Yes, exactly. Before getting, banned by YouTube for using strange words.
we don't want to go there. It's
exactly. So I just use unintentionally rooster.
Ruined the English language. There's no doubt.
Yes, exactly. Look at this rooster hat, Pete. Look at the beak. Look at the intricate design of it, right?
It's growing. I mean, it's
unbelievable.
it's yeah, you can imagine that one hesitates to think what other soldiers call these guys when they were swanning around wearing swords like that. But I mean, it's an impressive piece of work. Whether it's probably too short and heavy to be an effective sword. I've got one of my friend's sword at the moment that comes from one of these sappers units, and it's short, like the length of a gladius, but it's so heavy that to use it as a sword would be virtually impossible. Quite good for chopping up pieces of wood, though. But this is the same kind of thing. It's like a Swiss Army knife. It's a saw on one side, it's a sword on the other side. I mean, during the First World War, I think they made bayonets, big bayonets that had saw backs like that, because one of my cousins had one. And
this is a field officer's dress saber. Horse Grenadiers of the Imperial Guard. In 1804, Napoleon set up the Imperial Guard, an army within the army, wholly dedicated to his person and to the empire. From 25,000 men in 1809, its numbers rose to 100,000 in 1814. Amazing! What he could field.
Well, this is it. When warfare became a mass process, when armies the last time people had armies this big in the West was the Roman Republic when they were fighting Hannibal. During the Middle Ages, armies were small, but gradually through the 15th, 16th, 17th century, they were bigger. And at the end of the 18th century, they were huge.
Go ahead, please. Go ahead.
I love the grenadier's symbol of the exploding grenade. So the grenade was a ball-shaped thing with a fuse, like the
no, because you made a very nice comment before we started. Because I put the picture upside down, other way around. It looks like an octopus now.
Yeah, it does. It looks to me. Maybe I like calamari too much, but it looks like it's kind of like an octopus, where the flames are the tentacles and the grenade body is the mantle of the octopus. I noticed there's all kinds of things on the blade. Like when we see the enlargement of the handle, you can see another exploding grenade in a rectangle on the blade. But if you look at the photograph to the left, it's got some kind of mitre or some kind of hat. It's got crossed flags.
Crossed flags.
It's just completely covered in decoration.
Beautiful. What a sword. What a sword.
The weird thing is, and I've heard this said very, very many times, that these highly decorated swords were actually used. They're not for parade.
No.
Because the only time you take your sword out in parade is when you present arms or whatever the appropriate thing is in the various languages. But in battle, it's out all the time. You pull this out, I don't know whether it makes you feel better or it makes the other guy feel weaker. But there's something about all of this decoration that, on a real functioning sword, it might just say, this guy is so rich, he doesn't care what happens to you.
So they call it Saber of the Imperial Guard, the next one, of the honor of the city of Strasbourg, 1805. It says, when Napoleon visited the town, a guard of honor was formed from the sons of rich families to escort him. Look at this one, please.
Yeah, see this again, that's the bluing of the blade. The fact that the bluing only goes for a third of the blade suggests that, again, it's meant for use. The shell guard is, I mean, inside the grip, the actual real grip is very much like swords of the period, but the guard is very much like something from 200 years earlier. But it was clearly done with that it kind of, what would you call it, archaism? They're taking something from older times to mount on something modern, but it is mainly decorative, but still functional. That kind of guard over there is quite useful.
It is also, it is made in it was made in Klingenthal. This one.
Is that name from Klinger and Tal, like Blade Valley or something like that?
Yes, exactly. It's Blade Valley. Yes, Blade Valley. You know, I'm going to put the pictures of the city. Still, if you go there, Unfortunately, they stopped producing because even like 40, 50 years ago, they were still producing top quality agricultural tools like saws, and but then they went out of business. So what they did, the city and also many private collectors, they started to collect Klingenthal and brought them back, made a museum where they forged blades. And when you enter this museum, it is one of the best museums of arms and armor. Guys, visit Klingenthal. It's a small town. Actually, no one goes to Klingenthal. Everyone goes there only for this. It's unbelievable.
Anyone interested in weapons would find that really interesting. Watching someone forge a sword in the traditional manner, that would be great.
They do it once a week, yes.
Yeah, well, but you would organize your visit, so you got to see that.
Yes, very beautiful.
Yeah.
So, and then the next one is, of course, like they call it a presentation sword, right? And this is also very big. A small sword. Look at the blade bead.
Yeah, the cross section is a triangle with one wide side and two shorter ones.
So it was presented by the city of Strasbourg to Colonel Moris, also made in Klingenthal. Sorry, go ahead, please.
Yeah, but this was the sort of the period. It was, it's a sword of the superior officer. These descended from the 18th century swords that gentlemen wore.
Yes.
Really light, really fast. The blade's quite strong in the part near the handle. Very quick, very deep wounds. But the problem was they would kill you, but you didn't die straight away, so you had a chance to kill the other guy as well. Because they just go straight through the body. They're just designed to go straight through. So if they clipped your lung or clipped your heart, you're gone straight away.
Yes.
But if they didn't, and they still damage major organs because they went so deep. It's just that you took a while to die, unfortunately for you and for them to some extent. But very elegant.
Yes. This one was Dragon Flintlock musket. Year 9 model with a bayonet, 1815. It was made in Mutzig. I haven't visited that place, but I will one day. But just please take a look at that.
Yeah. So this is the kind of end of the first Napoleonic period, Napoleon I. This is a mass-produced musket for lines of infantry to use. Flintlocks were reasonably reliable. They did have some problems, but all guns had some problems.
Yes.
But the idea was lines of men fired together.
Yes.
Hence the word fusillade and volley as well. The volley has more to do with the process than the shooting. Fusillade actually comes from fusil, I think. Yes. I've only ever shot a flintlock once under supervision because you wouldn't let me near anything like that otherwise. What struck me, apparently it's even worse with wheel locks, is the delay between you pulling the trigger and the hammer striking thing and then the gun shooting. So you've got to kind of keep really still after you pulled the trigger if you want it to go in the direction you want. Now, weirdly enough, with archery, it's the same thing. If you do all kinds of wild stuff just as you release the arrow, eventually you do it before you release the arrow. And then the arrow goes crazy.
It was also excuse me. Go ahead.
Yeah,
you go ahead. My impression when I shot these flintlocks, also as you know, when I was in New Zealand, also later on in the US, when you shoot them, that was my impression. With matchlock was even more interesting, waiting for this match to come, matchlock. Yeah. And what was fast was, of course, percussion cap.
Yeah, percussions.
Yes,
that was it. I mean, they were remarkably nice to shoot. Well, again, I haven't shot a matchlock. I think somebody had one when I was somewhere, and my friends told me not to go near it because they didn't have a screw-in breech. They had a welded-in breech, and the chances of that exploding were too high. So I'm still alive, so I'm happy. I've been watching people shoot matchlocks with different types of trigger mechanism.
Yeah.
So some of them, there's a direct connection. As you pull the trigger, it pushes the serpentine down, holding the match. And others, European ones, that for some reason, all the later ones, the match came back towards you.
Yeah.
Whereas in Turkey and Iran and northern India, it always went away from you, which is like the cock on a flintlock goes away from you. And you think,
Yes.
why didn't they do it? But they knew what they were doing at the time.
Yes.
But the ones that are spring activated matchlocks are much more reliable than the ones that are relying on the pressure of the trigger to actually push the match down. Because I was watching someone on YouTube shoot an arquebus, and you could see they'd start to pull it and they'd hesitate, so it would go down and stop and then down. Whereas if it was spring loaded, it would go straight down, and you'd be sure that it was going to go off at that time.
Yes. So we have spurs here, and we have also stirrups, right?
Yeah, they're remarkable stirrups.
Baron General Louis Jacques de Courarn, 1771 to 1813. These are, I put them on purpose because I know you are going to like them.
Yeah, well, to me, the first thing I thought about was Manchu stirrups.
Yes.
They've got so many of the features: the round foot plate, the high wide arch, and I've only ridden with these stirrups of this shape, not this type, but the Manchu type once, and they were very stable. They were really quite pleasant to ride in. I've got a pair up on the bookcase. I might put them on a saddle and find out whether I still like the feel of them.
Yes.
But they give you very firm grip. I mean, you don't bounce out of them very easily.
Is it the shape of a flower or is it the sun?
Yeah, well, normally with French, I'd say the sun, but it does really look like a flower.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think there are Portuguese stirrups that have a similar shape to this as well. And I think you can still buy them in Portugal. But yeah, really quite nice. We've got an eagle there. I assume it's... Yes. Oh, here's a nice helmet.
Yes. This is this 1803, 1809.
Yeah, helmets were very distinctive in the Napoleonic Wars and up until like half a century later. Everybody was experimenting. These are not meant to be effective helmets. They're meant to be visually identifiable.
Yes.
And that's a four-cornered crown based on a Polish design. Hence the name is Szapka, from a Polish word. But they might be good at intercepting sword blows, but I sometimes feel that they're more to make you look impressive rather than to actually have a function. Because you'd imagine if a musket ball hit that, it'd go straight through it and your head. But on the other hand, they say this is from a light infantry regiment, and instead of wearing a shako, musicians wore the Szapka. So that technically weren't fighting, but they still got hit by bullets. Everybody did. It's very decorative. It's got lots of symbolism. I'm pretty certain the body, aside from the crown, is made of hardened leather because leather helmets were very popular at the time.
Yes.
They were lighter than metal helmets, and they didn't have metal helmets that had stopped bullets anyway, so they didn't have large scale use of shrapnel, so helmets weren't as important then as they are now. Here we have...
So let me just read that because I think it's very interesting. There are keys to the city of Strasbourg and presentation plate about 1805. Keys made by Jacques Frédéric Courstein, 1765 to 1838, and presentation plate by François Daniel Emblin, 1757 to 1827. Gilded silver. Now listen to this. These keys were presented to Napoleon on his return from famed Austerlitz, this battle in
Oh,
1806. Wow, wow, right? Then
yeah,
to Charles V in 1829, to Napoleon III again in 1852, and to President Poincaré in 1918. So the first it was given to Napoleon,
right.
unbelievable. After he won us Austerlitz battle, right?
Yeah, well, that was a very famous battle.
Yes,
One of his better battles, to be honest. He
yes.
did everything right there. But yeah, it's a beautiful, I mean, the plate is a beautiful piece of silver. The keys are a wonderful piece of jewelry in terms of the elaborateness, like the whole top part of the key is. I
Yeah.
assume it's lost wax cast and then chased and gilded and the amount of work.
Yes,
But yeah,
exactly.
you get the keys to the city. They're pretty impressive. Not very practical, but really impressive.
Beautiful, really beautiful. And this I made for Bede because I know he makes wonderful boots, right? Hussar's
These are
boots, First
these are a bit of
Empire.
tour de force. These ones. Um, the
Bede, why do they call, it says these boots in so-called Russian leather. Why Russian?
I think the red dyed leather was a kind of Cordovan. It got the name Russian leather in in France long before Napoleon. I think I've seen a shoemaking book that referred to it as Russian leather. It's a particular type of tanning and thickness. I'm not sure if it's dyed goat skin.
Mm.
I could look it up. But it was a high quality leather. It looked really impressive. You could do things like the concertinas around the change of angle in the boots, which is very technically an impressive thing to do correctly. It's really easy to do it bad. I haven't tried it because, well, I'm not going to live long enough to learn all the things I want to learn. So they've got low heels. They're really nicely made.
Yeah. And they have also
Crawl.
very nice, these boots is so-called Russian leather, okay, belong to Jean-Baptiste Lebel, officer of the Legion of Honor, Baron of the Empire in 1809, Lieutenant Colonel, second in command of artillery at Landau, acting commander of artillery of Strasbourg. My God, what a background, huh?
Yeah. The little tassels on the front of the tops of the boots are a concept I think that they copied from the Hungarians.
Oh,
Hence
sweet.
they call them Hussar boots. The that kind of concertina pattern in the leather, the multiple folds, you see that in Russian boots, in Turkish boots, not all, but some. And I think in Hungarian boots it's quite popular too. It made for a very supple boot and it's quite visually impressive.
I
But
think you
it's
can
not.
make boots like that, Beat, right?
Oh yeah, people can still do it. It's just
Yes.
that it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
But it's just to give so you can point your toe and like when you're riding, I think it's quite useful depending on the style of riding. Some styles that feed like that and some styles that feed like that. But
Yes.
yeah, these look like nice cannon
Yes. Two cannons, one
and
mortar. Yes.
yeah,
And the city
more.
of Strasbourg was famed for making cannons, mortars, and all these things. Right? Beautiful, right, Pete?
Yeah, the amount of work that went into making cannons look good as well as function well. I
Yes.
think particularly bronze cannons, are these bronze or iron?
More examples, please.
But
Dolphins,
yeah,
look at the dolphins, right?
see these are heavy shot firing cannon. Um, so they're shooting big shot,
Yeah. Very
quite
beautiful.
long distance, really beautifully made. And again, they put so much metal into them, it was worthwhile decorating.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, it explains that this Klingenthal arms factory, when it was established, they basically put these Strasbourg under heavy pressure because of stiff competition they
Yeah.
get.
I was trying to think what's third listening. Then I read the English. Oh yes, fatal competition.
Yes.
Uh,
Yes. You know,
Yeah.
yeah, I said, no, I was saying it, right? Okay, in 1730, but we are going to talk about Klingenthal later. The entrepreneur Henri de Antes hired several qualified workers from the Solingen factory in Germany and founded the Royal Sword Factory of Alsace in the valley of Aisne, on a site that became known as Klingenthal. The weapons produced were used in the campaigns of Louis XV to Louis XVI and so on. In 1801, that's interesting, Jacques Coulaux took up the reins of the Klingenthal factory, and his descendants ran it until its eventual closure on February the 1st, 1962. So it was operating, making agricultural tools. And in that museum, you will see, Pete, they still have examples of those agricultural tools as well, not only weapons.
Well, I mean, it's the old biblical quote of beating swords into plowshares.
Yes, yeah, that's true. That's true. That's true.
But yeah, but isn't it amazing where you get these groups of craftsmen and their descendants go on for a century or two, perfecting their
I
art.
was so sad, and I just thought, my God, couldn't someone help them to keep running the visitors, because it's such a history, So sad,
Yeah,
honestly.
but
So,
capital is based on profit, not
yeah, you're
not
right.
sentiment, unfortunately. But
Unfortunately.
still, I mean, I think what you've mentioned about how they've set up the museum there and all those kind of things, I think that keeps the spirit alive.
Pete, when we start to talk about Klingenthal and prepare this, you will love it. This is a journey, unforgettable journey, really beautiful.
Yeah.
So
Well, there's
these are French
lots.
sabers and swords.
Mhm.
More examples. Beautiful.
Yeah, these are really interesting, aren't they?
Yeah.
So you've got small swords, you've got um, straight swords,
Yeah.
you've got sabers,
Yeah.
you've got short sabers, so you've got cavalry sabers and infantry sabers.
Yeah.
Yeah, and highly decorated ones, some that look just very practical.
Yeah.
Um, wonderful stuff.
Wonderful. Oops, sorry.
It's nice to see they've got so many of the scabbards with them.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
This was also made in Klingenthal. Grenadier saber scabbard, 1787, 1790. Yeah.
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 So that's got a cast bronze or brass handle.
Yes.
Swords like that are remarkably heavy. But I think they were mainly symbols of, not so much rank, but you're a member of the corps. Oh, these look nice.
Very nice.
Wheel-lock muskets, and you've got flintlock pistols. Or are they?
Mm.
Yeah, they're flintlock. They're not Michelet. They're
Flintlock.
flintlock.
I mean,
So percussions. Yeah,
two of them are flintlock. These two are percussion, and then there
yeah,
are flintlocks. Yes, exactly. Two
and
percussion
wheel-lock.
pistol. Excuse me,
Yeah,
wheel lock. Sorry, these
yeah.
are these percussion cap. These are
Percussion, flintlock, and
and wheel
wheel-lock
lock.
at the back.
Yes, that's
Yeah,
it. Wheel lock.
wonderful pieces of work. Yeah, it's amazing.
And if you stand in front of it, I remember you can use this magnifying glass to read the marks, and so very
Oh,
nice.
right. Oh, that's great.
Yeah, you could read it,
Yeah.
everything there. Yeah, move it
The
and read
marks,
it.
the inscriptions, the
Yeah,
whatever that's carved on them, they had meaning at the time, and they still have meaning. It's a shame when somebody shows you a picture of a sword or a gun or a bow, and
yeah,
it's got an inscription on it, and they don't bother to translate it.
yeah,
I mean, one of the joys of reading the catalog from the Karlsruhe was they had all these Ottoman bows with poems on them, and they transliterated and translated them. I mean, it was in German, so I only understood half of it. But that's what you should do. You shouldn't say, and there's an inscription on the blade, or there's an inscription on the barrel. You should say what it says.
yeah. And that's why also, as you know, that in all my books I did. So because I didn't want only, because I don't know why some people don't have them translated for them. This is, it's because it has a significance. It's extremely important.
I,
Extreme.
I've spoken to collectors and asked them, well, don't you want that translated? And they went, oh, I suppose that'd be nice, as though it was just optional. I when I got the Ottoman sword with the inscriptions in Persian blade shape, but Persian inscriptions on it. I went to great trouble to track down what they meant. And then when I finally worked out what they meant, we were talking about swords, and you said, "Oh, well, send me a picture of them." And you said, "Yeah, this means blah 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 blah." And this is, like servant of the video out there, etc. And it to me, it was really interesting what they said. And it turned out to be really good for dating the sword, because they mentioned a whole group of Safavid Shahs, and one of them was not recognized by the Safavid dynasty, but was recognized by the Turkish Sultan. And therefore, you could, fairly precisely hone into it was during this guy's puppet reign in the 1740s. It adds value to your experience of the weapon, or be it a vase or a plate, and makes it more interesting. I mean, the thing itself may be perfectly beautiful, just looked at as an object, but when people wrote stuff on it, they wanted you to understand it.
Yes. So there are more example pole arms as well, and also more pistols, muskets.
Yeah, well, in Europe they developed lots of different pole arms. Yes. I mean, look at the fork at the top. Yes. Stabbing tines and hooks. So if you missed on stabbing him, reach over behind him and hook him and pull him off his horse or knock him out.
Yeah. Very nice. And again, look at this, like the sun or the flower. You see that?
Well, that one looks more like a sun, doesn't it?
The sun, I think it's the sun, yeah.
Yeah. And some of the halberds, the axe blade has got very attenuated and small.
Yes. Again, we have two model 1750, and then down there is a model 1750 as well. Both of them are made again. This is in Klingenthal. Right, this is made in Klingenthal, and yeah, Saber of the Royal Allemand, as they call it. And this is this one, right? This one, this one Saber, I'm sorry. This is this one. With,
very, very, very nicely designed.
Yes.
It's kind of got the hilt is quite archaic compared to I mean, I don't know. Obviously, at various times, the government said we want a hilt like this for our swords, and that was the pattern for a few years. But that sword looks, the hilt looks almost 16th century. The hilt, not the guard, the hilt itself, wrapped in wire and all that kind of stuff.
This court sword was made in 1750, was placed on the coffin of the Marshal of Saxony when he was buried in the Temple of St. Thomas in Strasbourg in 1777. Interesting, huh?
Yeah.
They all have history. That's what makes it wonderful.
Yeah, and this is where museums add so much value to our history, by tying it back to objects.
Yes, that's what some, I've worked for also many private collectors, but, private collectors sometimes, I don't know. But, guys, you need to appreciate that museums are there, because if everything was in private hands, Yeah,
I mean, in Sydney, we've got a number of wonderful museums.
Yes.
And the people working there want you to be interested.
Yes.
They're very positive. And often the organizations are extremely accommodating to researchers. I found that. Yes. But sometimes, like, I think the Art Gallery of New South Wales held a night, meet the conservators. Yes. So you would go in, you'd have a glass of wine and some cheese and whatever, and then they would show you how they worked and what their tools were, and how you took an old painting and cleaned off the varnish and put new varnish on, and the colors came out. They do a lot of good stuff in museums, and it's difficult sometimes. So we have a stirrup crossbow.
Yes. Just explain what is a stirrup crossbow, so our viewers know that.
Early on, they put a stirrup-shaped object at the very end of the crossbow stock that you stepped in when you pulled the string back. And that gave you a greater purchase. But the stirrups in these crossbows are almost certainly just to hold the crossbow steady while you wind some kind of mechanism to pull the string back, because it's too hard to pull the string back by hand. And these things became, kind of intricately bound together so that there are side plates that hold the bow in place, and the stirrup goes through the slots in those, the bow goes through the slots. Then the whole thing is, by a series of wedges, pulled back against the stock, and to make it a very firm seating for the bow. It also allows, by putting shims in, you can adjust the angle of the bow so that you can get the best position for the string. See, when a crossbow like this has been around for 400 years or whatever, well, this is 1688.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's 350 years or something. Those little things fall out. And often the bows end up so that the string is going up over the stock and down on the other side, which isn't how they were meant to work. It's very inefficient. Oh, another court sword.
Yes. This is, they call it musketeer sword with scabbard, circa around 1765. So Zhengxian master between 1761, JF, right, and 1779, right, 1763 to 1779.
So yeah, and again, this is like a small sword. It's particularly designed for stabbing, usually by a gentleman stabbing somebody else in a duel, another gentleman. But they're lethal. And
so there were two of them who made it, two masters. Another one's J.J. Dorfer, 1763, also recorded activity up to 1789. Look at the handle, please.
Oh, yeah. Notice that it's almost ergonomic shape for you, fitting into that part of your hand. Yeah. You could put a finger or two on the rings. Yes. You could, I mean, there were lots of different techniques, but this is a highly decorated sword. But it doesn't matter with this type of sword because it's not meant to bash people. It's meant to pierce people. Yes. So you can make it really highly decorated. As long as the steel in the blade's good, it's going to work just as well. Oh, yeah, these are nice.
Again, French swords, my favorites, sabers. The first one is National Guard officers, Montmorency style, 1790. Look at this.
Yeah.
Now wait,
please. But still functional handguard. I mean, that's really a work of art.
Yes, and a functional blade. Look at this.
Something as well.
Look at this, please.
Beautiful. I'm looking at, yeah, it's wonderful. Beautiful. It's interesting. It's got a frog.
Yeah.
Well, it's got a raised button. Yes. For a particular type of scabbard mount called a frog, but it's also got rings for suspending from the belt.
Yes.
In Saber fashion.
Yes.
I have seen on Indian and British swords a feature on the belt where you had a hook that sat on the belt, and you could wear the sword slung, or you could lift it up and put the top ring through that hook. Yes. So that the sword sat vertically when you were standing around. The scabbards also seem to have that feature to them, which is interesting. They're quite nice shaped blades. They're quite complex.
Yeah, this is 1792.
Yeah.
And look at this.
Oh yeah. So a coat of arms and again quite a blade with a fair amount of writing on it.
Yes, sorry. Yes.
Yeah, these are very nice, very nicely made. And again, thinking of how old they are, it's pretty good.
Yes, and the next one is 1792. Look at this, please.
Wow, that's a whole different style, isn't it?
Yeah.
Is that? Are we seeing the top of the back of the blade there as well? So that
here. Yeah.
The blade is quite thick.
Thick, yes, thick.
But so it's wide and tapers into
tapers. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it's got decoration on all sides of the blade. It's just form.
And then we have the next one, and the next one is also National Officers Guard Montmorency with scabbard, 3 orders model. Oops, sorry. Look at this.
Yeah, see, again, really not. The guards are very decorative.
Very.
Function too. I mean, you wouldn't want to get them cut up, but if it's going to protect your hand, you don't care.
Yes. And the next one, Battlefield Saber of Strasbourg National Guard. Look at this.
Yeah. So they've got a distinct style that they like,
Yes.
and they're following it with variations in each of the swords. So it's got a backstrap.
And this one is manufactured in Vienne, not Vienna, guys. It's in France, right? This is
Vienne. Yeah, I see.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Saber of a
Yeah.
representative of the people in the armies with scabbard was presented to General Kellerman by the municipality of Vienne as a reward in his victory at Valmy. Look at this one.
Oh, right.
And
Yeah. That
one.
looks quite a practical sword.
Yes,
The
absolutely.
blade is a good shape.
Very.
Mm.
Let's take a look at it here as well.
Yeah, yeah. The guard, look how thick the guard is.
God's sake, look, boy. Look at this meat.
We're definitely not going to get our hands cut if we can avoid it.
Yeah, exactly. And then here we have some, again, muskets, right?
Oh, nice ones too.
Nice.
Short carbines, flintlock muskets.
Yes.
Drum, a few
Yes.
swords scattered about.
Yes. And this one is saber officer, right? Light cavalry officer sabers with Hungarian style mounts. This is 1800. And
Yeah,
now,
yeah.
yes.
Yeah, no, that's really nicely made. Here we have
and then two more swords, sabers we are going to see.
Yeah.
And then we have, again, some others here. I mean, there are so many things there in this museum. I just tried to put some of them for you. And this is interesting as well. Percussion carbine, 1829. This is also a percussion carbine, as you see. And there's also grenades as well, right?
Yeah. I'm looking at that. It's got a lot of exposed barrel, like the infantry percussion musket has the stock goes almost the full length of the barrel, whereas that one it's only half the length of the barrel.
Yes. That's
right. And of course the infantry musket has a bayonet mounted, which is a common thing.
This one is Dragoon percussion rifle, 1847 T model with bayonet. And this one, right? But this.
Yeah, I'm guessing that the introduction of percussion caps shortened the reloading process a lot because you don't have to move all these things, and you just get a cap out of your pocket. I pop it on. I mean, there were misfires. I mean, sometimes the caps didn't go off, but you just got another one out and put it on.
Yes.
So you'd have a little bag of percussion caps, which would be, maybe dozens and dozens of shots. Yes. And the thing that, you don't realize, if you use a flintlock, you've got to keep replacing the flint because it chips and breaks and stops working. So it's not like you get this gun and shoot it 1,000 times. No, every 100 times or so, and maybe less, I don't know. You've got to replace the flint as well. With percussion caps, you just have to keep it clean.
Yes. So another rifle, 1866 model, this one.
Yeah.
Mutzig arms manufacturer.
And
that's
in the days of very long bayonets. As times got closer to our own, the bayonets got shorter.
And this is Officer Saber of Infantry.
That is Zouar type
1855
uniform there.
Yeah, to 1860.
And is he wearing an apron?
I don't know. Yes. Yes, it is.
Yeah, isn't it amazing? Oh dear.
Yes. And then again, we see that another.
Yeah.
Right.
That's a very nice musket. Or nice looking. I don't know enough about the history to know if they're nice to shoot, but
how did you find that? Wasn't it beautiful, this museum?
That was a really good collection because it's covering a very long time span.
Yes, it does.
High quality weapons.
Yeah.
Interesting designs.
Yes.
I mean, the French were very inventive and very brilliant in their designs. I thought the whole thing was really quite nice.
You know what always amazes me in France? France is, I mean, not only France, but I have to say France. If you want to see arms and armor, France is a mecca. There are so many museums with arms and armor. I always ask myself, beautiful arms and armor. Look, in every country you can have, of course, you can see arms. No, I'm talking about quality arms and armor. Just stand corrected. Not just arms and armor. Quality, beautiful. That's what I meant, right?
I think, the French Museum, I mean, because I'm relying on photographs and people going on tours and things like this from you, because I haven't been to France, and I have French acquaintances that said, "Oh, you'd really enjoy this, or you'd really enjoy that." Clearly, they're right, because there's some fantastic stuff there, and just the level of craftsmanship. Whether you're talking about a plate armor or a kind of Dishaga helmet or a 19th century sword.
Yeah.
I mean, beautiful. It's all beautifully made.
Yeah, all beautiful. This is some sort of this French touch to it to make things so beautiful, right?
Well, they were very famous for their innovative sword designs. And this is in the 18th and 19th century. And for parts of the 19th century, they were regarded as the place you copied arms and armor from. Unfortunately, the Franco-Prussian War destroyed that reputation, because the Prussians had worked out how to use railways to move your troops really quick. And, that kind of changed warfare forever.
Yes.
I mean, the problem is that today's generals are always fighting the last war, except for the guys that had to innovate because they'd lost. And so that there's always these kind of conflicts between new and old. But the French were always experimenting with, first with guns and then rifles, breech loading rifles and things like that. Other people copied them, and sometimes they improved them and sometimes they didn't. It was very, touch and go on those things. But definitely it's an amazing culture. I've always found when you get a French person talking about something like this, they really are going for it. I mean, not everybody's interested in the things that I'm interested in, but there's a kind of interesting culture in France that you find among almost everybody. Whether it's this type of culture or whether it's the latest music or whether it's, whatever, but they're passionate, they're interested in culture. And the one thing that I find very compatible, they're interested in food, which I think is a very important part of life.
French cuisine, of course. Thanks a lot, Bede. It was lovely talking to you. I wish you a nice day. And hopefully next time, if you don't mind, we can talk about Klingenthal, or maybe we can talk about we have so many museums to go.
Look, I'm happy to talk. Well, you keep showing me interesting things. What's better in life?
Yes. Thank you very much for your input. And
thank you.
I wish you a nice day. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Bye.